So for some reason, and for the sake of responding to some comments in advance, I need to mention the obvious. An Easter egg is an Easter egg, and when I use an Easter egg in order to kind of debate what's going to go down on the series, that does not mean that I'm saying that the Easter egg is going to come to full fruition, but that it's possibly part of a hinting sequence, a group of Easter eggs that hint in a certain direction. And some of the things in the future of the series might be loosely based on that kind of direction, not exactly those Easter eggs. But that being said, hey guys, and welcome back to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos and my theory update video for the third week of the run of Season 6. So things on the series have kind of been expanding exponentially, like increasing dramatically episode after episode and week after week, and we've got a lot to summarize from past weeks and a lot to talk about this week as well. So let's get started with the Coulson is a demonic entity theory, or that he's been resurrected by a demonic entity. And do remember that in this case I'm talking about the possibility that this is our Coulson or an alternate Coulson, but still one that did die in his own timeline and ended up being resurrected, and possibly, most probably, by a demonic entity. Okay, so how many Easter eggs have we gotten so far to that effect? First and foremost, we've got the ghost rig, Coulson's truck. Coulson's truck looks very similar to the Ghost Rig out of the comics. The Ghost Rig out of the comics is basically yet another Ghost Rider vehicle. But am I just talking about a design thing? Not really, because on the second episode of the season, at some point, Pax is talking about the truck, referring to it as a truck, and then 1 minute later, towards the end of the same conversation, Sarge ends up referring to it as a rig. He's the owner, the driver of the rig, and he's referring to it as a rig. Now once again, he's not a Ghost Rider, this is not the Ghost Rig, but nonetheless, it's all the bit about Easter eggs being possible hints towards something that's pretty similar, but not exactly the same. Okay, but that's just one. No, there are a lot more. There's the fact that after Coulson died on the pages of the comics at the hands of Deadpool, he ended up being resurrected by none other than Mephisto. Again, one other thing that I talked about last week. But there's also two out of this week. The first one is all about the Kingmaker, one of the Kree writings in the casino that we visited on episode 3 did read Kingmaker. Now the use of the word Kingmaker in a casino kind of fits with the narrative that you're basically in a casino. If you do end up winning, you might be a king. You might just walk in with barely enough money for, one chip of the lowest denomination offered, but nonetheless come out a filthy rich man. So yeah, that can refer to that. Actually, it probably refers to that whether or not it refers to something else, because Easter egg or not you put it in there is gotta make sense within the entire narrative. But nonetheless though, when you think about the source material that all of this is based on, the comic books, one of three characters that go by the alter ego name of Kingmaker happens to be Prior Cashman, and Prior Cashman is basically a demon who feeds on the memories of humans. Kind of fits with what we're thinking about Coulson here, Coulson with a memory erased. But once again though, this is an Easter egg, it doesn't necessarily have to be a reference to Prior Cashman making an appearance on the series, but it could be a hint towards whatever it is that we're going to discover about Sarge, the truth about Sarge, later on in the events of the season. One other thing about the Kingmaker though is that there's another version of the Kingmaker, a version named Wallace. Now Wallace is no demon, nothing, a filthy rich man, and this could all be a reference to him being the Kingmaker in this case, a man who loans people, gives them the opportunity to gamble, just like I mentioned before. So it's kind of a multiple reference, possibly trying to hint at something while at the same time giving us a plausible narrative. There's all the talk about Butterfly, the fact that Pax over here does talk to Coulson on episode 2 about previous lives, which means that this could possibly be the case, that he's got a previous life, that he was Coulson in a previous life, and then now he's Sarge. There's also another mention of demons. There is the fiery planet that Daisy mentions on episode 3, wanting to go to the fiery planet. Now that is most probably a reference to Muspelheim, home to the fire demons, home to Surtur, the fire demon. So yeah, it's an MCU reference and whatnot, but at the same time, we're getting a lot of references to demons, a lot of references to resurrection, and of course the fact that Sarge did recognize the Coulson name. But that is what we've got so far when it comes to, the resurrection theory, the resurrection of Coulson, once again be him an alternate reality Coulson or our Coulson. This guy must have used to been Coulson. Now one of the theories out there is that Sarge has been a Coulson from an alternate reality when he was killed at the hands of Loki in 2012, he ended up becoming Sarge. He never went through Tahiti, never had to go through all of this, never had this team as his SHIELD team, but instead his life just ended then, memory wiped, resurrected as this entity, the Sarge entity, and he was no longer Coulson, and now it's up to the team to kind of bring his memories back. I'm not really sure though if repeating his name every time they see him is gonna do the magic here, but in all cases they're gonna have to do something in order to remind him of who he is. Now the one drawback to both theories is that so far we've only got Easter eggs, we've only got hints to resurrection, to death, to coming back to life, but nothing solid. But that isn't really a major drawback because we're building theories over here. We're not expected to be fed the truth about Sarge at the beginning of the season. The second theory does as well work better with the entire narrative over here than the first one, because it does seem to me, and I think to most of us, that Sarge has been with this team that he's working with at this moment for quite a while now, like 4 years, so this isn't his first, second, third, or even 20th rodeo, even though if we do assume that his memories have been erased, or he's been resurrected without his old memories, it goes to absolute sense that we could assume as well that his new memories, some of them at least, have been implanted. Now before I move on from, resurrection, fiery demons and whatnot, there's the other thing, the one thing that is not Easter egged yet, or that is not hinted at yet, but something that we know about a future episode. A character named BAAL-GAD is going to be on that episode. Now on my week 2 theory video, I did speak about BAAL-GAD. I did mention that BAAL-GAD sounds like a Cree name, the Baal, the hyphen, the Gad. That's very Cree, Minerva, Mastandar, Jan Rog, Marvel, that kind of Cree with the hyphen and all. But nonetheless, with all the Easter eggs, possible Easter eggs towards demonic entities, Easter eggs towards ghost rigs and whatnot, there is the possibility that BAAL-GAD is just an extension to kind of keep us off the scent of what's going on. Because if you take the first part of the name, that being Baal, ignore the last part, the Gad part, you'd have Hadad out of the comics, and Hadad out of the comics is basically a demon god. Now the fact that BAAL-GAD is going to make appearances closer to the end of the season, on episodes 8, 10, and 13, or I think 8, 11, and 13, don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but nonetheless definitely back half of the season, that kind of makes you wonder, is this basically going to be about the time that we know who hired Coulson or hired Sarge, and is this basically about time that we discover who Sarge really is? And if that were to be the case, could BAAL-GAD possibly be just Baal, and hence we've got Hadad out of the comics, all of which put together would be fitting of the name of this guy being Sarge, because we've got a Sarge in the comics, a Hellhound. Now when I say that Coulson is Sarge from the comics, I don't mean literally, I don't mean he's a Hellhound out of the comics. I think his name is just an Easter egg towards that, which means that, he's been resurrected by a demonic entity, or possibly resurrected by a demonic entity. But before I move on to the next topic, I'm not really stuck to this theory. I mean, it does make a lot of sense to me, but I'm kind of open to other theories. That's why I'm still mentioning this one as a theory, listing it as a theory and not as absolute fact. So if you've got anything else that you can think of, and of course based on what we know so far from the first 3 episodes, let me know in the comments down below. As a matter of fact, and before I move on, there's this other theory that I'm thinking of right now. I mean, it's not my theory to start with. Someone actually pointed out in the comments to one of my videos. But what if, and in the most twisted of fashions, Sarge is actually the good guy? I mean, it is a possibility. The trailer of the upcoming episode is not 100% clear. So in a way, what some of us are seeing is him inserting those parasitic aliens in people, in order to bring about the destruction of the planet. That could also be, him trying to defeat these aliens, trying to get them out of these people, like it is an exorcism of sorts. Now that could be a good reason why he's after Deke. I mean, the people with the parasitic aliens are anomalies of a different kind, but however though, because Deke is in the wrong timeline because he is his own anomaly, that's basically what's creating the confusion for Sarge. Like he's after Deke because he thinks Deke is one of those people infected by those parasitic aliens. Now that's really an option, it's a good twist as well, like we're expecting him to be the villain, but he's not really the villain. The villain here is something else, someone else, something bigger and someone bigger, and Sarge, with all the evil that he does seem to bring to the table, is actually against that villain. That villain could be the BAAL-GAD that we're talking about, could be a demonic entity as well. Now the drawbacks of this theory is if these people are onto a humanitarian mission, they wouldn't be this bloody. I mean, Snowflake wouldn't be this bloody. The other drawback to this theory is that everything we watched on the trailer of the season, like stuff from future episodes, all of that kind of hints at the exact opposite, hints at the fact that this guy is the villain, or at least a villain working for the bigger villain. But while we're talking drawbacks, there is also the one thing out of the trailer of this season that kind of makes this possibility sound true, and it's all about Butterfly or Snowflake or whatever her name is, basically being with Team S.H.I.E.L.D. She's not working against them, she doesn't seem on that scene to be taken prisoner, it's not like she's chained or she's handcuffed. So it makes it all sound like a moment of realization that we're both working towards the same thing. Now that scene could be about something completely different, maybe a redemption arc for Snowflake, maybe a realization that Coulson is gonna sell her out, so basically she joins forces with Team S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe a total misdirect on the trailer, or maybe all of this that we're watching right now is the total misdirect. But however though, moving on and away from who Sarge is, possibly a villain or, a good guy, and into the objectives of Sarge. If he were the villain of this season, the objectives of Sarge. Now I've started talking about that on previous videos, the possible incursion-like event, the possibility of having been hired by a third party to bring destruction upon Earth, this world, and that's probably for a reason as well, because for example the Confederacy would be a definite profiteer out of all that would go down on this planet. I mean, the Kree portion of the Confederacy would come in as saviors, just like they did on episode 8 of season 5, take over the planet, what remains of it, and they'd pretty much enslave humans to do their own bidding and enslave Inhumans in order to sell them to the highest bidder. But hold on, according to the trailer of episode 4, Sarge is after the same thing the Chronicoms are after, anomalies in the timeline. Well, if the Chronicoms and the Chronicom Hunters were acting as anything like the Time Variance Authority from the comics, which is what they're probably doing over here, they're afraid of those anomalies, they are handling those anomalies at this point in time because they are creating trouble in the timeline. So pretty much they're gonna go after Deke, and their going after Deke has got nothing to do with Sarge's going after him. Sarge, in my opinion, and this is just a theory, his going after the anomalies is basically why the Chronicom Hunters are going after them. He's going after them to achieve an objective, advance an agenda, fulfill a goal, which is basically the destruction of the planet, the destruction of Earth. That's what basically has these Chronicom Hunters alerted in order to, stop that. And to stop that, they need to get rid of the anomalies. The "you and your friends are out of time," the statement that he tells Daisy. He's not after Daisy though, but he tells her that you and your friends are out of time. That's because their planet is gonna get destroyed. You're all running out of time. If you keep doing this, if we keep playing these games, if you keep hiding the anomalies, you're gonna run out of time and your planet is gonna be destroyed. Malachi, the Chronicom Hunters, might seem like they are enemies of our team, but their actual animosity is with Sarge and whatever he's doing. But wait a second, hey, it seems that Sarge is actually after the same thing, correcting the timeline. Not really. Every single time they start talking, him, Jacko, Pax, and Snowflake. With Snowflake, it's about killing people, and with the rest of them, there's talk of the kind of, it's such a shame that this air is not going to be breathable at some point. So whatever the reason is, an incursion event, which I did talk about on my review video for episode 3, or possibly being hired by a third party, like I did mention at the beginning of this video, and in so many videos before, they're definitely using those anomalies that have been created by the branching in the timeline. Now Deke is the kind of obvious anomaly, he belongs in a different timeline. However, though the anomaly fits bit, I've explained that in full on a dedicated video that I did post yesterday, so do feel free to check that one before we start arguing as to whether or not he is an anomaly. But that being said though, let me know in the comments down below what your theories are when it comes to Sarge. If you are thinking something different, let me know as well what your proof is for such theories. I mean, based on the events of the series. Do not ignore complete statements, do not ignore complete events in order to advance a theory, just base it on what we've seen so far. In other words, don't be selective in presenting a theory. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and have a great day.